I'm a little bit verklempt right now. And so today I want to do something a little different than you were probably expecting from this Christian man from Newark, New Jersey. I want to do something that has probably never been done before at this university. I want to stand here as a Christian goy in all of my non-Jewish self and give you all a Devar Torah. Now, for those of you who have no idea what a Devar Torah is, it actually is to speak on a religious view from the Torah, or many of you, the Old Testament. And so you have no idea why this gargantuan goy is standing up here about to talk to you about the importance of Jewish education, about the ideals of Judaism. Where do I get off doing this? So let me give you a bit of my background. Look, I was selected as a Rhodes Scholar. I land in Oxford, and in my first week there, I meet this woman, and she invites me to have dinner with her. I said yes, and at the last minute, Oxford has this note system. She sends me a note, and it says, look, change of plans, please meet me at the Oxford. And I looked at this word, I'd never seen the word before. It was, I looked at L'Chaim, meet me at the Oxford L'Chaim Society. What is L'Chaim? And I went around asking people, what does El Chaim mean? And I showed it to other people from Britain, and they're like, I don't know what an El Chaim is. I've never heard of the El Chaim Society. And finally, I meet one person that can tell me what it is, and he says, no, Cory, it's not El Chaim, it's L'Chaim. And I'm like, is something caught in your throat? And I show up at this place, and it says Chabad on the front. And I'm like, you know, what is this? And I walk up and I go into this place, and I knock on the door, and I hear all this commotion coming from the other side. And there were people, they had hats on and beards, and they had terrible tailors because strings were hanging out of their shirts. And it was one of those moments, and I'm not sure if you've had this in your life, where you walk into a place where you immediately feel, I don't belong here. And everybody stops and gives you that look like you don't belong here. And people are looking at me, I'm looking at them, and I'm reading every mind in the room. Everybody's thinking, what is this big black guy doing here? And I'm thinking to myself, what is this big black guy doing here? And so this very orthodox looking woman comes over to me, and she says, are you Cory Booker? And I'm shocked she knows my name. I'm like, oh my God, yes, I am Cory Booker. And she goes, well, the person that was supposed to meet you here couldn't make it tonight. and I was like, I was stood up. And not only was I stood up, but I was stood up before a bunch of people who I don't know. And so I turned to leave, and she asks me a question that profoundly changed my life. I go to walk out, and she says, excuse me, would you like to join us? And I'm telling you, this, I wish I could say I'm this liberal guy and said, of course I'll join you. All I'm thinking to myself is, I gotta get out of this place. and now I'm thinking to myself, how can I think of a white lie? Like, I double book my Friday night dates. Sometimes I do 2 or 3 in one night. So I'm gonna go to number 2, but no. So I said sheepishly, okay. And she brings me over to this table that's a banquet table, all full. She actually sat me down in her seat. She was the rabbi's wife. And so I'm now sitting next to the rabbi. And this guy couldn't be any more different than me. I'm 6'3". This guy was like 5 feet and a smidgen. I'm black, he's white. I am very good looking. I could not tell he had so much hair over his face. I couldn't tell what he was like. So I sit down to this guy, stiff as a board, and now I'm like sitting there, and he is drunk. And he puts a bottle of vodka in front of me and says, welcome, drink. And I said, sir, I don't drink alcohol. And before you knew it, we're talking and we're laughing. And before you knew it, I just felt this connection with this guy. And so before you know it, I'm wearing a kippah. I am dancing with the Torah until he tells me not to drop it. And I said, why? He said, I'll have to fast. And I never fumbled at football at Stanford. 4 years, never fumbled. But I handed off immediately to the small Jewish guy to my right.
Shmuley's parties I always thought he was setting me up for something. Let's get the black guy to do something really great. Let's see what we can do. I walked into my first Purim party ever, and I'm telling the truth here. I walk into my Purim party, and I see a line of people lying on the floor. And he says, okay, Cory, we're going to jump over the... I go, what kind of crazy tradition is this? Jump a Jew? I've never seen it. Let's find the black guy and jump the Jew. But we talk about things that really were important. Shmuley made an ancient faith come alive and demonstrated to me that Judaism, and religions in general, but Judaism is not something about what happened in the past. It's the Torah is a living document and has a prescription for life now.
And I started coming back on Friday nights and bringing friends of mine. Friends that wondered why I was hanging out with the Chabad family. Friends of mine that were Jews and non-Jews, Christians, Muslims. We were all going to have Friday night dinners. Friends of mine who were Jewish and like, you're going to a Chabad house? I said, I got to see this. I'm going to go. I've never even lit a Shabbat candle, but I just want to see you there. And Shmuley, who is his name, looks at me and says, at the end of the year, he goes, Judaism is not an insular faith, Cory. Judaism is a faith that has a mission. He said, Judaism is a faith of values. And you embody these values. And he said, I've got a question for you. And he said, would you be the president of this Chabad house? And I said, you are crazy. But I have an affinity for crazy men. And I said, no, and we argued, and I said, I'll do it if you have a Jewish co-president. And so I became, the first time in the history of humanity, a black goy head of a Chabad house.
I, at Yale University, am proud to stand before you right now, having founded a religiously based group while I was here. It is known, and I hope some people here are affiliated with the Great Eliezer Society. Thank you very much for the one person who is a part of Eliezer here. But in truth, Eliezer is one of my most proudest Yale affiliations, and I say that with all sincerity. We started Eliezer with a young rabbi. I met him on his 21st birthday. He was a Hasidic Chabad rabbi, and no, I don't have something caught in my throat for those of you who are non-Jewish. This was a Hasidic rabbi who was an extraordinary man. And it was 5 of us around a table at the Taft Apartments who on a Shabbat night celebrated this wonderful, wonderful organization's beginning. Now, I am a non-Jew, I am a Christian, but this was to me extraordinary. We started a society named after Eliezer, who is from the Torah, actually is a non-Jew himself, and he was sent by Abraham to find a wife for his son.
The rabbi told me, look, I get the Devar Torah, and some kids listen, some kids fall asleep, some kids, look at their cell phones, and he thought maybe if this large black boy got up here, maybe the Devar Torah, you all would pay attention to me, because you're just like, I don't know if this is really going to be a good Devar Torah, but I got to hear this guy try. So I'm going to do that, the most unconventional Devar Torah, because it has to do with sports, and it has to do with this week's Parsha reading, which is awesome. This is an awesome Parsha reading this week. Isn't that what you after Shabbat was over, you got up and said, awesome Parsha this week? Because to me, this is a powerful portion. It gets me so excited because it is about an ideal that is so critically needed right now in this world. It's this idea of goodness, of charity, of supporting others. And this is what this week's Torah portion is about. These agricultural commandments to Moses about how to do charity. What it says is that when you're actually in your crops, if something drops down, don't pick it up. Leave it there for someone else. That this should be something that is integrated in your life. And that it should be as much a part of your routine as anything else. This idea of giving back to others. The other commandment is about leaving a corner of your crops at the corner and not harvesting that, letting someone who's poor have that. Which is to me also amazing. Rabbis discuss this and say, well, why didn't you do the center of your crops? Because far be it for you to make somebody render their pride naked, that they have to walk all the way through your fields to the center. Put it on the corner so they don't have to humiliate themselves by the act of taking charity. This is amazing ideal within the Jewish faith. The original commandments are about doing good for other people.
God, I began to hear voices from our ancestors. I heard that song from the high holidays in the Jewish faith, Ki Beiti Beit Tefillah L'chol Cho'amim, may my house be a house of prayer for all people. I heard Golda Meir say Jews together are strong, but Jews with other people are invincible.
The Jewish voice cannot be lost. It can't be diffused. And it should not be muted. We can't have people that are ashamed of their Judaism or only want to express who they are within a like community. No.
Now, I would normally welcome our guest by referencing the Torah portion of the week, but word on the street is that nobody gives the Dvar Torah on the Parsha better than Mayor Cory Booker. So I can't compete with that. So if it's okay with the mayor, I'll reference a different part of the Torah in welcoming you today. I hope that's cool.
That's cool.
Okay, great.
After Passover, you start studying the Mishnah, and the reading for the week is about this idea that if there is no ethical behavior, there is no Torah. And if there's no Torah, there's no ethical behavior. And so, to sum up, to me, your calling from God, I think, is to go out and be ethical people, to be people who live the values of your faith, who are people that infuse what are Jewish principles that are, I believe, the larger universe is starving for, that ultimately are the ethical principles of humanity. The Jewish population in this country is small, but the God you serve is so large, and God wants you two to be large. So do not be a light unto nations only. God calls you to be more than be a light. All of you should be brilliant.